House on the Moors, written and directed by Anna Corbould, starring Anna Corbould and Tom von Dohlen, recorded and edited by Anna Corbould.
So sorry to keep you waiting, Miss Talbot.
That's okay. Thank you so much for seeing me.
I must say, I was surprised by your request. It's not often I take a commission of this sort, and a most interesting story.
One that's plagued my family for generations. It's nearly 100 years to the day.
Well, quite.
Don't you think that some stories just demand to be told in order to exorcise them? My grandfather's story must be told.
I understand completely, Miss Talbot. Maybe together we can finally put this whole thing to rest for you and your family.
Thank you.
Now, I have made some changes to your grandfather's notes. Nothing to do with the story, mind you, just some tweaks that will make the presentation more theatrical.
I trust in your professional judgment.
Shall we begin then?
I suppose we must.
It was a cold October day when I entered Mr. Markby's office, that fateful cold day in October. Had I known what was to befall me, I would have felt some trepidation at the meeting, but being young and American, I was therefore stupid. So I entered his office without a care in the world, though it was October, and so bitterly cold.
Ah, Talbot!
Mr. Markby, you wanted to see me?
Yes. Tell me, Talbot, how long have you been here at the offices of Markby and Turner, interior decorators to the wealthy and well-connected?
About 6 months, sir.
Yes, and before that?
Well, I had only just graduated from the Winchester Interior Design University with a bachelor in advanced aesthetics. But surely you knew this, Mr. Markby, having come to New York to hire me yourself?
Yes, merely an expositional device on my part. You've made quite the impression, young Talbot. Your work on the Duke of Norfolk's London pied-à-terre has been the talk of the season, even when his wife walked in on both of his mistresses taking tea together. All they could talk about was the wallpaper and soft furnishings.
Why, thank you, sir.
Mr. Turner and myself have been discussing it, and I think you're up for a bit more of a challenge. One of our oldest clients, a family of some standing, has recently purchased a house in Tiffin Manor and is needing some renovation.
My God!
Something wrong, Talbot?
No, Mr. Markby?
Very good. You'll meet Mr. Cochrane down in Tiffin Manor tomorrow to inspect the property.
Right. Of course, Mr. Markby.
We're putting a lot of faith in you, Talbot. Your first solo commission is nothing to be sniffed at.
Oh, sorry about that. It's just so cold being October and all.
I'm sure you'll fulfill your duty to the firm with dignity and style.
I shall do my best, sir. Oh, and I almost forgot. I brought you a small gift. Happy anniversary.
My boy, you shouldn't have. What a lovely passport holder. Mr. Turner will be delighted.
I'm glad, sir. How long have you been married?
10 years now. Hardly seems like any time at all, really. Well, this will be most useful when we go on our second honeymoon. Good day to you, Mr. Talbot.
Good day, Mr. Markby. Maybe I should have said in that instance that the name Tiffin Manor sent a shiver down my spine. But I was young and stupid, and figured it must have been the cold October air. I hastened back to my rooms, then hastened to the station, where I was able to catch the last train to Tiffin Manor, where very few people boarded the train with me to that dark and dismal corner of the country, so I found myself alone in the carriage. Determined not to waste the journey, I settled down to read the latest novel by Tristan Brassington Smythe, a writer of erotic fantasy I particularly admired. The darkness, the warmth of the train, and the cavorting of Mr. Brassington Smythe's nymphs conspired to send me into a slumber. As I sat up with a start sometime into my journey, judging by the countryside speeding past, I was startled to find a gentleman sitting next to me, observing me very closely. Ah, Jesus, man, you've startled me.
So sorry, Mr. Talbot. Didn't mean to disturb you.
You're sitting awfully close, aren't you? How do you know my name?
Oh, it's on your luggage tag, sir.
I mean, you could sit opposite rather than next to me, Mr.
Sliderpool, Uriah Sliderpool, at your service, Mr. Talbot.
I mean, it would be easier to talk if we were sitting opposite rather than you being next to me.
What takes you to Tiffin Shufty, Mr. Talbot?
Not that it's any of your business, but I'm an interior designer, and I've been employed to renovate the manor house there. I mean, really, the whole carriage is empty. You could have sat anywhere except...
Tiffin Manor! My, what a prestigious assignment, Mr. Talbot! But you know what they say about Tiffin Manor, Mr. Talbot?
What's that?
That it's haunted, Mr. Talbot.
Well, I don't hold any truck with that sort of thing. Where did you even get on the train? I thought this was a direct line.
I wouldn't dismiss it so easily, Mr. Talbot. There are more things in heaven and earth, Mr. Talbot, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
God, I hate it when people misuse that quote.
All I'm saying is that decent, rational people have visited Tiffin Manor and seen things and heard things that betray rationalisation. There are things about the place that even a young man such as yourself, with such smooth, strong legs, would be at a loss to explain.
Are you touching me? Yes, you are definitely touching me. I would really rather that you sat in the other seat.
All I'm saying is be careful, young, firm Mr. Talbot, and don't think that education and fancy underpants are going to keep you safe.
What's my underwear got to do with all of this?
There are things in this world that beg a belief and defy explanation. So you'd better keep your wits about you. Or better to turn tail and run now, while you still can. Good day to you.
And with that, he stood up and strode off down the carriage. I was, for many reasons, extremely shaken by the exchange, but I hardly had time to think on it before we pulled into the station at Tiffin Shufty. One thing did strike me as odd. When I pulled my case down from the luggage rack, I noticed that I must have somehow managed to trap the luggage tag bearing my name and address inside the case when I had packed it so hastily. So, how did the singular Mr. Sliderpool know my name? The road before the station was empty, save for a cart on the driving board of which sat the largest man I'd ever seen in my life, a huge bear of a man, over 6.5 feet tall, with a chest like a barrel and a beard like a rhododendron bush. Excuse me, sir, but are you Mr. Hidlings?
No.
Well, I'm Mr. Talbot. I believe you're taking me to the end, the pacifist's arms?
Mm-hmm.
Shall I ride up front with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then. The night being so dark, I could hardly make anything out of the village as we passed through, and my taciturn companion wasn't making matters any easier. So, are you from Tiffin Shufty?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that despite its small size, it's quite a vibrant town.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the yearly Onion Festival is something else.
Mm-hmm.
I've also heard some quite startling things about the manor house. Some believe it's haunted. I give up. We pulled up outside a large, friendly-looking inn, dark and cold at this late hour.
She's probably left the key under the mat for you, sir.
My God! Hidlings!
Yes, sir?
Your voice!
Yes, you'll pardon me for not talking, sir, but I have something of a cold. I'm a bit hoarse at the moment.
Right. Horse. That's it. Well, thank you for bringing me from the station. Maybe when the inn is open I could buy you a drink.
Thank you kindly.
And with that he disappeared into the night. The landlady had, just as Hidlings had said, left the key under the mat, by which I let myself into the inn and up to my room, where I fell into a dreamless sleep. The next morning I woke to gray skies and the smell of bacon frying. I washed, dressed, and headed down to the inn's main reception room. Ahoy, ahoy!
Oh, hello, dearie. You must be our young Mr. Talbot.
I am.
I'm Mrs. Lummy, the landlady here at the Pacifist Arms. I'm glad you found the key all right. If you'd like to park yourself at the bar, I've got your breakfast on the go.
Nothing too heavy. Thank you, Miss Lummy. Just coffee and a pastry will do for me.
Here you go, lovey. Just a light snack.
Good gracious, what is all this?
Oh, just a few examples of the local fare. 3 fried eggs, 4 types of sausages, black pudding, white pudding, streaky bacon, back bacon, side bacon, beans, tomatoes, mushrooms, bubble and squeak, and a fried slice.
I can't seem to see the bread.
That's because it's being used as the plate. Tuck in, there's more where that came from if you're hungry.
Right.
Now, you'll pardon me for remarking, Mr. Talbot, but you look very familiar.
Probably just got one of those faces. I get that all the time.
Something about the eyes, and the nose, and the mouth. You've got a very distinctive mouth, Mr. Talbot.
I don't know what you mean.
It's uncanny. I'm sure I know you, but then again, we can't have met before.
I sensed this was the time to come clean. The truth is, Mrs. Lummy, I had heard of Tiffin Shufti before my firm sent me here. You see, my family is from here originally.
Oh, Lord! You ain't. It can't be. You're Constance Talbot's boy.
I am.
I did hear she went to America after all the, unpleasantness.
If you can call her being run out of town for being an unwed mother unpleasantness, then yes.
Yes, I do admit the tarring and feathering was a bit extreme, especially in her condition.
And yet she still spoke of this place with fondness. The summers, the cheese rolling, the onion festival, the cheese and onion pie baking contests, it all sounded so idyllic. The only thing she wouldn't talk about was the manor house, out on the moors.
Well, the less said about that place, the better.
Why?
Let's just say some odd things seem to happen there. Never have gone near the place myself. I don't have a mind to.
I really would like to know more, seeing as I have to meet Mr. Cochrane there this morning. That's why I'm here, you see, to work on renovating the house.
Saints preserve us.
Mrs. Lummy.
Nothing. Well, if you're trekking all over the moors, I'll make up a picnic basket.
Really, the breakfast was more than enough.
Nonsense, strapping lad like you. Gotta keep your strength up. I'll go and see what I can rustle up.
There's really no need, Mrs. Lummy. I don't really eat much, and she's gone. You won't get over, boy. Ah! Have you been there this entire time? There's things about that old house that'll make your hair stand on end. What kind of things? Things that'll make your toes curl and your teeth rattle in your head. Sure, I'm just wondering what these things are supposed to be. Things that'll turn your bowels to water and your blood to ice and shrink your genitals to the size of raisins. I get the picture. If you could just tell me what happened. Well, some years ago up at the manor house.
I'll put in a few bits that I had lying around. Leftover sausages, beef Wellington, quiche, potatoes au gratin and such like. I was just wondering what you like in your sandwiches.
It's really not necessary.
Nonsense, you've got to have sandwiches. I've got ham and cheese and pickle, ham and cheese, cold tongue jerk, chicken, kimchi and dumplings, fried slice or tomato soup. I'll just do you a bit of everything.
So, what happened? What? Up at the manor house. How do you know what went on at the manor house? I don't know. You were just going to tell me. Was I? Yes. Well, apparently it all started when old Tiffin boy's new bride back to the manor after their honeymoon.
Now I've got some really nice birthday cake. Only a couple of days old. It was Hidlin's birthday. Special recipe of mine, chocolate and ginger.
No thank you.
Are you sure it's a speciality of mine?
I'm just fine without it.
Suit yourself.
So what happened with the young bride of Lord Tiffin? Eh? Lord Tiffin, his bride, you said something happened. Ah, yes. Well, it all started with a dinner party soon after they just got back from the honeymoon.
Now, I don't want to toot my own horn, but it is very good chocolate and ginger cake. Proper Belgian chocolate and ginger all the way from London. I'd hate to think you'd be missing out.
For the love of God. Okay, I will have some chocolate cake. Wait, where did he go?
Oh, who, dearie?
There was an old man here trying to tell me about something that happened at the manor house.
Oh, that'll be old scullery. I wouldn't pay no mind to him in his stories. I do lock the door at night, but he always seems to sneak back in after I turns all my other regulars out. No harm in him, really.
God damn it, but what happened at the manor house?
Nothing you need worry yourself about. Here's your picnic.
Miss Lummy, I really don't need all this food. I'm only going out for a few hours and I'll be back this evening.
Oh, why didn't you say so? I better put in a flask of tea and a few scones for an afternoon snack.
Hidlings pulled up in his cart a few minutes later, and between us, we just about managed to get the picnic basket into the back of the cart. Are you feeling any better today, Mr. Hidlings?
Yes, Mr. Talbot, thank you for asking. Mrs. Lummy made me some lovely ginger tea and it's cleared my throat and chest up something lovely.
Ah, I see. The day was grey and dreary as we set off through the town of Tiffin Manor. The streets were quiet, and pale faces watched me from the windows. Hidlings, why are not more people abroad?
Oh, we tend to take our holidays during the summer, when the weather is better.
Makes sense. We rounded the corner, and there in front of us were the vast moors. The wind whipped off the rolling peaks. I shivered. Ooh, how far is it to Tiffin Manor?
Half an hour's journey for them that knows the way.
It seems I could make the journey on my own after this.
I wouldn't recommend it. The moors can be tricky places. Myself wouldn't even attempt to cross the journey without good old Winstanley here. Only be thrown on its soil, know its ways.
I must say, he's a mighty odd-looking pony.
That's because he's an alpaca.
A what?
Haven't you heard of the wild Cornish alpacas? Time was the moors was teeming with them. What with the coming of the railways and people hunting them for their distinctive golden coat, they're all but extinct. I came across Winstanley as a baby, injured and half starved at the side of the road. Took him in, fed him up, he's been my constant companion ever since. Some say his sire might be Old Murphy.
Old Murphy.
Legend among the Cornish alpacas. Some say he's 100 years old, huge he is, with a mighty honk that could be heard all around the moors on a misty night. A lot of travellers owe their lives to Old Murphy, who guides the wayward back to the road if they get lost.
What a fascinating story. Then we rounded a bend, and there it was, Tiffin Manor, a huge and forbidding erection that rose out of the mist in a huge and forbidding way. My giant companion shifted nervously in his seat. You seem troubled, Mr. Hidlings.
I don't like the place right enough.
Nobody will explain to me why. What happened here?
Not my place to say. If I was you, I'd conclude my business and get back to town as soon as possible. I'll be back just before dark to come and get you.
Thank you. And thank you, Winstanley. And with that, he sped away. The house looked so dark and unwelcoming that I decided to explore the grounds before going in. It was there, in the flower beds at the back of the house, that I encountered my employer, Mr. Archibald Cochrane.
Whatcha? Might you be Mr. Talbot?
The very same.
Delighted to make your acquaintance. Archibald Cochrane. Bugger Cochrane to my friends.
Excuse me?
I had an interest in collecting beetles when I was a lad. Nickname stuck ever since.
Oh, I thought... Never mind, I see.
So I suppose I should show you the old place. Marvellous, isn't she? Of course, you yourself aren't straight into impressive erections, are you?
What?
Weren't you apprenticed to that fellow that did the interior of the Flatiron Building in New York?
Oh, God, yes, my first year of college.
Good-o, good-o. Well, shall we?
After you. To say the house was dark would be accurate. The place was dusty and had a hollow, unlived-in atmosphere. How long since anyone lived here, Mr. Cochrane?
Please, call me Bugger.
I'd really rather not.
Suit yourself. It's been about 20 years since anyone lived here, since the lady of the house died.
Died?
What? No, did I say died? I said retired. Retired. Must be the English accent. It's confusing you.
I don't think you told me how you came to possess the house.
Let me give you the tour. You can see we're in the hallway, and through here's the drawing room. We plan to have the whole place fit with electric lights, which I'm sure you'll be in favour of, being such a modern young man.
I hardly heard the rest of Cochrane's rambling tour of the house, showing me gloomy room after gloomy room. Each room seemed to be decorated using the same paint and wallpaper, hastily and inexpertly applied. It was only when we had toured the whole first floor and had started to move back downstairs when I noticed Cochrane had neglected the room at the end of one hallway. My dear Cochrane, I believe we haven't seen that room.
Which room?
That room at the end of the hallway.
The third library?
No, right at the end of the hallway.
The second ladies' water closet?
No, that one. That one at the end of the hallway, the one with the green door and the 7 bolts in it.
Oh! That one! No, nothing of interest in there at all.
Are you sure? I, of course, want to execute my commission as completely as possible.
No, really, nothing of any concern behind the green door with the 7 bolts. Everything else, go right ahead, just leave the room with the green door alone.
Okay.
Let me show you the conservatory.
It only occurred to me much later to ask why all the bolts had been on the outside of the door.
was all completed by Smelter Buckley before that whole embarrassing incident with the Princess Mary and the pomegranate, and here we are back at the front drive.
Thank you. Now, I think it best if you left me alone to make some preliminary sketches of the rooms.
I could always stay and keep you company.
No, thank you, Mr. Cochrane. I prefer to work alone, at least in the earlier stages.
Suit yourself. Hiddlings will be back before supper time to pick you up. Is there anything I can get you to eat in the meantime?
No, that sizable trunk on the front step is in fact a picnic provided by Mrs. Lummy.
Good Lord. I wonder, did she give you any of her chocolate ginger cake?
I shall see you later, Mr. Cochrane. And so I was left alone, with my sketchbook, measuring tape, and slide rule, and for a while I was as happy as I could be, hardly noticing the gloom as I set about my task of measuring and sketching the rooms. When I had completed the plans and measurements for the downstairs, I decided to take my lunch, so I laid a fire in the library, then quickly realized it should have gone in the fireplace, then sat down to my repast. On my tour of the downstairs, I had come across an old desk, and this had been the matter of only 10 minutes with my lockpicks and a number 2 crowbar to get it open. Inside, I found a lady's diary, and being an impertinent young man, I sat down to read it while I ate. Wow, this really is good cake.
Oh my, I am quite the happiest of women, as I am this day married to my one true love, my dear Sidney. Today I start my life as Lady Rose Tiffin, and Mamma has given me this diary to mark the occasion. I shall record all of the exciting this and that my adventure as a new bride shall expose me to.
Apart from a quite frankly disturbingly detailed account of the wedding night, the next few weeks' entries were dedicated to the honeymoon touring Europe, which she seems to enjoy apart from everyone she met being...
So dreadfully foreign.
And...
Not being able to get a decent cup of tea anywhere.
Then they returned home.
And of course, my first duty as a new bride is to decorate. The whole place is so dreadfully dreary and out of date. I should furnish it in all my own style to the highest fashion. And then at the start of the season, we shall have a fantastic party and show it all off to our friends.
Before I could get much further, I became aware of a sound on the upstairs landing. Placing the diary down, I moved into the hallway. There again was the unmistakable sound of footsteps and some kind of mad giggling. Ahoy, ahoy! Is someone in the house? But no answer. Ahoy, ahoy! If there's someone in the house, I'd really like to know. I have some tea and some rather good cake if you'd like some. The footsteps continued, but no one made an answer. Picking up a lantern, I headed up the stairs. Just as I was about to call out again, I saw the hem of a lady's dress disappear around the corner, so I decided to follow it. The figure wound her way through the upstairs corridors, always a turn out of sight, till we had made our way to the final corridor, the one with the green door and all 7 bolts had been drawn back. Not knowing in that moment what possessed me, I walked towards the door, my heart beating fast, my breath coming in pants, and my hands were shaking, and then just as I reached for the door handle... I don't know what happened. I must have blacked out, and when I came to, I was at the bottom of the hallway steps, and Hiddlings was standing over me.
Are you all right, Mr. Talbot?
My God, Hiddlings, there was a woman, and a scream, and a hem of a dress, and...
What woman, Mr. Talbot?
I don't know. How did I get here?
I just came in and here you were, found asleep at the bottom of the stair. I must say, it's mighty odd, Mr. Talbot, to find you here. You didn't by any chance drink some of Mrs. Lummy's homebrew?
There might have been something in a flask in the hamper.
That'll be it then. It takes some people strangely the first time they drink it. Let's get you into the cart.
And with that, Hiddlings lifted me onto his shoulder and carried me into the cart. I scarce remember the ride back to the inn, but I woke with a start the next morning in my bed at the inn to the familiar smell of one of Mrs. Lummy's lard-soaked breakfasts.
Oh, good morning, Miss Talbot. Did you sleep well?
You could say that. I hardly remember getting home at all.
Oh, that would be my fault. I shouldn't have included the homebrew. It does tend to strike the unaccustomed in a peculiar way.
And, I can't find my trousers.
Oh, yes, me and Hiddlings felt it necessary to strip you and wash them. Another little side effect of the homebrew.
Why does anyone drink that?
It's good for keeping the cold out. Cures all manner of ills.
Seems to have the effect of curing all manner of wells to come to that.
I'll just be getting your breakfast.
If you would package it up, I'd like to set off early. I didn't complete all my tasks yesterday.
Right you are, Mr. Talbot.
Oh, and Mrs. Lummy, there should be a delivery for me sometime today.
A delivery?
Yes, I'm having my contraption sent to me from London.
Whatever in the world is that?
Well, I've patented a contraption that helps with the removal of wallpaper from walls using steam. I must say I'm rather proud of it. It earned me a Distinction in Creative Development Award last year.
Oh, sir!
Oh, believe you me, Mrs. Lummy, being dicked is no small matter.
No, I mean, you intend to remove the wallpaper from Tiffin Manor?
Of course.
Can't you just go over it with new stuff?
Now, to the uninitiated, that might seem like a solution, but the professional knows that the only way to do a proper job is to strip away everything that lies underneath.
Oh, looks.
Is anything wrong, Mrs. Lummy?
Nothing. I'll send your contraption on just as soon as he gets here. Does Mr. Cochrane know your intention to strip the wallpaper?
I haven't told him of my plan explicitly.
Oh, I see. Well, I'll pack up your breakfast. Hidlings will be along in a moment, and your trousers drying by the fire. If you don't mind me saying so, sir, the cut of them really doesn't do you any justice.
Thank you, Mrs. Lummy. I'll be getting dressed now. And soon enough, I was dressed and backed on the road to Tiffin Manor. I completed my initial plan of the upstairs without any disturbance, and was just eating my second fried slice when Hidlings knocked on the front door.
Mrs. Lummy, I sent your package over, and some more bacon.
Thank you, Hidlings.
I suggest you be careful, Mr. Talbot.
I'll bear that in mind, Hidlings.
The alpacas seem mightily restless today.
Okay.
Just saying. See you at supper time, sir.
And with that, Hidlings left. I had such fun assembling my contraption, adjusting the settings, getting the boiler going. I was just fetching some water from the kitchen when I heard a curious scraping sound from the hallway. Fearing my contraption had blown a gasket, I hurried to the hall. The contraption seemed fine, but then I turned to face the stairs. Someone had used a knife or other kind of sharp implement to carve the words "ugly" into the dark gray wallpaper at the top of the stairs. And in the distance I heard the slam of a door. I knew which dreaded door it must be. A sudden boldness seized me, and I called out, "Ahoy, ahoy! You shan't get the best of me!" And I hauled my contraption to the top of the stairs, where I applied it to the wallpaper. The old glue melted up under the steam from my nozzle and soon began to peel off in strips. And what I beheld then shook me to my core. My God! Such hideous designs, such clashes of color, and still the layers came, each one worse than the last, just when I thought I was getting down to the last layer.
Stop! Don't look any further!
Cochrane!
For the love of God, come away! That last layer is the same wallpaper that killed Oscar Wilde. I beg you, we must leave!
But just then I turned, and at the end of the corridor, the green door stood open, and in the doorway a woman. I mean, the woman was fairly hideous, basically the personification of madness and decay, but beyond her in the room I saw designs of rooms, but rooms fit for hell. Bathrooms entirely covered in carpet, pebble dashing in the nursery. Paisley, for Christ's sake! As I tried to take in the scene, the woman rushed at me, shrieking madly. Without thinking, I held up the nozzle of my contraption and blew a jet of hot steam into her face, which seemed to dissolve her momentarily. It gave me enough time to gather my wits, leap down the stairs, and head out the front door to Cochrane's waiting automobile. We sped off across the moors as behind us the sounds of mad shrieking echoed. Some time later, we were safely camped out by the fire with a large measure of brandy each, and Cochrane began to tell his story.
I'm sorry to get you mixed up in this damnable business. I thought I could overcome this damn curse. Damn sorry business, damn it.
And that lady?
My great Aunt Rose, lady of the house some 50 years ago.
Lady Rose, I found her diary.
Yes, I found it last night after Hidlings picked you up. You really should read the next passage. I'm so very, very happy. I've put all my effort and creative talent into making this the perfect home. The decor is of the latest fashion, no expense spared, and I can't wait for the party this Saturday.
Then, an entry 2 days later.
The party was an utter disaster. At first, everyone seemed to be having a good time, complimenting me on my house, my decorations. But then, while I was picking up a fallen sweetmeat behind a table, I heard Lady Phyllis Foxglove saying to Mrs. Twaddle that she thought the ballroom was in the poorest taste, and the drawing room was particularly ugly. Ugly! How dare they? Thinking it was just spitefulness or jealousy, I crept round the party, listening at conversations. Again and again I heard it. Ugly. Bad taste. Colourblind. Ugly. 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 Then I could stand it no longer. I stopped the music and I cried, I'll show you all who has bad taste!
There are no more entries.
That's because after that night she went into quite a mania. She began redesigning and redecorating one room after the next, never stopping, growing more hideous with each redesign. My great uncle left and still she continued. Until one day she was painting the crystals in the chandelier orange when she slipped and fell and broke her neck. They covered up the rooms as best they could, but then people started seeing her walking the halls. There was nothing to do but shut up the house.
And no one thought to tell me any of this before I came here.
I thought I could put it all behind me. If we could just redecorate it with some thought to design and colour, we could put her to rest. Damn it.
Well, that turned out well.
I really am dreadfully sorry, old chap. You shall, of course, get 3 weeks' fees in full. I suppose there's nothing to it but to tear the old place down. Damn shame.
And with that I left Tiffin shufti. I heard some weeks later that the house had indeed been torn down. Then the timbers burned in a pyre. Then the pyre blessed with holy water. Then the ashes from the pyre driven north and dumped on an uninhabited island off the coast of Scotland. And I thought I was done with the matter. But something was calling out to me. It was spring, just as the flowers were blooming, and it was time for the onion harvest that I found myself again on a train to that quiet corner of the world. No, fuck off. I'm not talking to you. Leave me alone or I'll throw you off this train. Hello, Mrs. Lummy.
Oh, Mr. Talbot, we didn't expect to see you down this way after all that happened.
I found I couldn't stay away. There was something calling out to me.
Well, you did leave a pair of socks here. I kept meaning to put them in the post.
No, Mrs. Lummy. The thing that called out to me was you.
Oh, Mr. Talbot.
Oh, Mrs. Lummy.
Oh, Mr. Talbot.
Oh, Mrs. Lummy. Wait, what?
And then they kissed, and they were married 3 weeks later.
Your grandfather, young Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
and Mrs. Lummy.
Yes, she was my grandmother.
Even after all the business with the cake and the homebrew? It takes all sorts, I suppose.
I just wanted to thank you for helping me do this. I feel my grandfather's story can really be laid to rest.
Well, you were great, and can I just say, the actress you hired to be the ghost, really, really top-notch.
But...
Mrs. Talbot.
I didn't hire an actress to play the ghost!
The House on the Moors, written and directed by Anna Corbould, starring Anna Corbould and Tom von Dohlen, recorded and edited by Anna Corbould.
Well, we could get going if Anna would get her ass into the studio. Ah, there you are. Better late than never. That fateful cold day in October. Had I known what was to befall me, I would have felt more trepidation. God damn it. Are you serious right now? Why can't I fucking read? I'm bringing it up. I don't like slouching. Well, I had only just graduated from the Winchester Interior Design University with a bachelor in advanced aesthetics. But surely you knew this, Mr. Markby, having come from...
Yes, merely an I can't say the word. Expositional. See, I'm tripping over my words too. Yes, merely an expositional device on my part. You have made quite the impression, young... Oh, Jesus Christ. What's wrong with us today?
Determined to waste the
Not to waste.
I know. Bwah, bwah. I just wanted to riddle you. And with that, he stood up and strode off down the cabbage.
Down the cabbage.
All right. Oh. All right.
Do you want to do Winstanley? Sorry,
I'll do a few more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
I love you, Mr. Talbot.
Old Murphy, eh?
I'm surprised you noticed that when you read it the first time.
Skimmed it the first time.
Yep.
All right. No. What?
So that I can lay it over the background of your
that's fine.
speech. And here we have you'll notice that the crown moulding is a very good example of this. And these portraits, aren't they lovely? And and if we all just step this way, and we'll find this is there.
Do
and,
some mild, like, erection.
You said that very loudly.
Yep.
Erection and stuff like that. Erection. Jolly old things. And when I was at school, I had this fag named Stevenson, and he was my best friend for many a year. And this is a portrait of him.
That's actually where I got the nickname Bugger.
Fag means something completely different when you're talking about the public school system of England, don't you know? But here we are back in the hallway, and there we go. And then, at the start of this season, we shall have a fantastic party and show it off to all our friends. Sorry.
What the fuck was that?
Have you never heard, like,
That's
really posh
horrible.
people? Really posh people.
Before I...
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to do the last line.
Okay. Just as I was about to call out again, I saw the hem of a lady...
The hem?
The hem of
a dream.
I headed up the stairs in pants, and my hands were shaking, and then just as I reached for the door handle... Oh, and, Mrs. Lummy, there should be a delivery... and Mrs. Lummy, fuck! Oh. I know. Being DICD is no small matter, Mrs. Lummy.
Being dicked is no small matter.
I know. Oh, believe you me, Mrs. Lummy, being dicked is no small matter.
Mrs. Lummy sent your package over, and some more bacon.
Thank you, Hidlings.
I suggest you be careful, Mr. Talbot.
I'll bear that in mind, Hidlings.
The alpacas seem mightily restless today. Calm yourself, Winstanley.
Okay. And with that, I left Tiffin Shufty.
Tiffin.
And with that, I left Tiffin Shufty.
Tiffin Shufty.
And with that, I left Tiffin Shufty.
Scene 14. I want it to be a bit more dashing, this bit, because this is your great... You've come back to your great declaration of love for Mrs. Lummy.
Hello, Mrs. Lummy. No, Mrs. Lummy. The thing that called out to me was you.
Oh, Mr. Talbot.
Oh, Mrs. Lummy.
Oh, Mr. Talbot.
Oh, Mrs. Lummy.
Scene 15. Oh, go away, Winstanley. Not besides you. I didn't hire an actress to play the ghost. And scene.